Welcome to Black Barrel Tactical. Today, what we're going to be talking about is just understanding the 5 things you need to know before you buy a gun and the 5 things you need to know after you buy a gun. All of these are important, so stay tuned as we go down the list. The first one we're going to do is you need to know your gun laws. It's important to know your gun laws because you need to know what type of guns your state is okay with you having. For example, if you live in a state like California, they have a cap on how many bullets can be in your magazine or your capacity. I think they also have an issue with handles and the position of the handles on like your AR-15s and stuff like that. From my understanding, California has a lot of state-specific rules. I live in South Carolina, so I'm not really sure everything that California needs. I'm pretty sure someone's going to tell us in the comments. The second thing that you need to do is be able to determine the purpose of what you're going to use the gun for. For example, if you're going to use something for home defense, you may not pick something that's a pocket carry pistol or what people would consider a micro pistol. Just because, again, you're going to be at home. It's going to be, on your nightstand or somewhere safe, or in a safe right next to your bed. The next thing that I advise everyone to do is to really take a firearm safety class. And just the importance of that is to understand, the principles, especially the 4 universal principles, of keeping everybody safe with the firearm. It's very important that everybody knows those front to back. And I honestly believe before you should touch a gun, you should know that, and you should be able to spit them off at any given moment. The next thing I think you should do is, after you've determined your purpose of what you want this particular gun for, you should, again, hit up YouTube because they are a treasure trove of knowledge. Like, I wish I had known that when I was starting out in my gun purchasing phase. But again, just make sure you try out different firearms, look and see what you might be interested in, and also not just take, the people that word that you're watching these videos on, actually go to a range and rent some of these guns out. I wish I'd have did that when I first started. My first gun was actually a High Point. And when I bought it, I literally bought it because it was the cheapest gun. And when I got it, everybody was making fun of me. It was like, "Oh man, you got a High Point, ha 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 ha." But then, like, I looked at all the videos and I was like, "Bro, what y'all talking about? This gun came with a lifetime warranty." I seen this 20-minute YouTube video of they dragging this gun through the concrete, through the swamp, like through the back of the off the back of the truck in the forest, and that mug still shot. So to me, I was like, this is a good gun. A gun just needs to shoot. And it wasn't until like I got older and I started taking it to the range more, and I realized, I was like, wait, if I try to rapid fire this bad boy, it's jamming. It's jamming. That's not what we want. So that was my first gun for a long time. My second gun, I didn't learn too much more. I was actually taking a firearm safety class, and I was getting my CWP, which is our concealed weapons permit. And when I was getting it, I was like, oh man, I want something that's going to be easy to conceal. And I also didn't want to take that High Point. So I went to the pawn shop again, and I bought a LCP2. I did look at it a little bit. It did have really great reviews. Matter of fact, this is it right here. Has a little bit of rust because I guess something spilled on the pocket of it or whatever. So that completely blew. And this is the first time I took it out the safe in like 2 years. But anyways, it used to be my EDC, so it did have a magazine with bullets in it. It's empty. It's empty, as you can see. This was probably one of the first favorite guns that I had. It was pretty cool. But my problem is this gun, like, it's too small for my hand. Like, I got fingers hanging out that just don't, no. Not only that, it also had a larger kickback because, when guns are micro like this, they have a nice little kickback to them because they don't have enough weight to kind of balance them out and stuff like that. So, again, when I bought this gun, I didn't spend a lot of time trying to try it out. Like, I watched the YouTube videos and everything else, but after I bought it and I shot it, I was like, yeah, no, I don't like it. And so again, like, it was my carry for a while until I bought another one. But I just didn't, I knew I was going to buy another one because of that. the next gun that I bought, I did a much better job. I started looking at YouTube videos. I started taking, owning another gun seriously and started thinking about really what I wanted to get. And with that being said, I got the Glock 19. I did a lot more research into it. I watched a lot more videos on it. I knew exactly, in theory, what I was getting into. I used to work at a school, and so I knew a lot of people who were cops and stuff. And so, I spent time talking to some people, and it was like, oh yeah, well, half of the department carries the Glock 17. Some people can get the Glock 19X. So I knew those two were the ones I was probably looking at trying out just because I like the overall size of them. You never hear anything bad about Glock. And being someone who's from the hood, like that's one of the first guns everybody talks about. So that was the next gun that I bought. This is my EDC. I've already taken the magazine out. As you can see, I got the hollow points. As you guys can look, it's empty. It's empty. All right, awesome. This is probably, again, my favorite EDC, just because the size of it. It's not too big, it's not too small. It shoots great. This is probably my second best shooter out of the set that I got. I just really, really, really like everything about this gun. And I specifically got the Gen 3 because I like the finger grooves. I like pretty much everything about this gun. I like the variation in the slide. You have it smooth right here, and then it's kind of checkered and gripped right here. I do have attachment for a light. However, it does not fit the case that I bought, so I primarily leave it off unless I have it in the safe for home defense. So whenever I swap my guns out, if it's going to be for home defense, and I put the light back on, and of course, if I put the light back on, I don't need this case. And actually, this case came from We the People. Really decent holsters, by the way. But yeah, I love everything about this gun. It is probably my favorite everyday carry. So next on my journey of purchasing a gun, I was working at a hospital. I was doing security, and the hospital requires you to be, this particular site requires us to be armed. And so we went through the test, and the gun I shot, I was like, oh man, this shoots nice. I really, really, really like it. And long story short, it turned out to be the Springfield XD Elite Military Edition. And so I decided, I was like, oh man, I'm going to get me one of those because I really, really like them. It is also my EDC. Whenever I'm not wearing the Glock 19, I am wearing this gun. So again, because it's my EDC, it was loaded. The magazine was loaded, but now it's empty. As you guys can see, it's nothing in there. There's nothing in there. All right. And a little thing about me, I always try to make sure I check the chamber 3 or 4 times just for safety purposes. You can never be too sure when you're talking about being safe. Again, I really like this gun. The only downfall I think about it is it's the biggest gun that I have, and it's a pretty large. And I'm a pretty large guy, so it's still pretty easily for me to conceal. But just because, I got a little bit of a belly, the Glock 19 is a little bit easier on that. Again, I love everything about this gun. This is probably my favorite shooter. I've had this gun for maybe about 4 or 5 years. No, since 2022. So yeah, I had this gun 3 years. My bad. I apologize. But I really, really, really am a big fan of the grip safety in the back. I think that that's very, very important. Probably my favorite shooter, hands down. Oh, I can get distracted talking about guns all day long. But the last thing that you guys should be thinking about is the cost of the gun. And when I say the cost of the gun, it's not just how much the gun costs to take home. You also have to consider things like ammo, because different calibers have different costs. And that's why outside of my LCP2 and the High Point that I bought, every gun that I own is all 9mm. One, because I want to make sure that I have enough bullets for any gun I take to the range on any given day. And also, 9mm is just so cost effective. Everything else costs a lot more. And, that goes into the cost of owning a gun. How often you take it to the range and stuff. And I try to go at least once a week. So those costs can add up if you're not, careful. So that's why it's important to, know the caliber of what you're getting. Also, you want to make sure that it's a gun that doesn't have to have a lot of upkeep. My Glock 19, I think that I have cleaned it once since I had it, and I think I've had it since 2020. And I've probably put maybe 400 rounds through that. I really just started going to the range a lot this year. But I've probably put about 400 rounds through my Glock 19. My Springfield XD, I think I have put up 300 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. Again, like I just really, really love that gun. That is my favorite gun to shoot. I think it's so awesome. Not only that, you guys also have to take in the cost of, maintenance and getting a kit to make sure that you keep it clean. That's very, very, very important. So now that we've talked about the 5 things you should know before you get a gun, we should talk about the 5 things you should know after you purchase the gun. And again, in accordance with knowing your laws, you have to know that if you're in a state where it needs to be registered. So again, after you buy a gun, you need to double check and make sure that you're not in a state where it needs to be registered. The second point that we're going to talk about is just understanding how to properly secure your firearm. For a long time, I did not have a safe, but I did make sure that I didn't keep the weapon loaded. Even though it was for home defense and it stayed by the bed or it stayed in the car, wherever it was, I tried to make sure that I didn't keep them together. And that was also in accordance with our local laws at the time. Like you could put it in your console, you could put it in your glove compartment, but the clip and the weapon could not be together. They have since changed our gun laws and they can be together. And so I do keep mine together when it's in the car, but I try not to leave it in the car if I'm not in the car, because that's how your guns get stolen. And you don't want guns just out on the streets, just all willy-nilly. You don't want that. So we talked about that. There's several ways to secure your gun. You guys can get a gun safe. You guys can get a lockbox, which is pretty much the same thing. It's just a smaller one, and 9 times out of 10 they hold like 1 or 2 guns. You can also make sure that you get a trigger lock. A lot of times when you buy the guns in the stores in South Carolina, they come with this little black button that's going to lock the trigger down and you won't be able to do it. Sometimes they come with the little lock tab that hangs through. Technically, I know I should have put my finger through there because trigger control. But that's how the lock works to control it. The next thing you need to know is understanding the ranges in your area and understanding where you can go to practice your weapon. You guys also need to be concerned about, the cost, as well as what kind of practicing can you do at the range with that weapon. Some ranges will not let you pull out a holster fire, pull out from your holster and then fire. Some of them won't let you do that. So it's important to know when and where you can go so that you can practice different things about owning a gun. The fourth thing that you guys need to know, sorry, I'm on number 4. The fourth thing you guys need to know is how to clean and properly maintain your weapon. I can't stress that enough. It is very important. Even if you get something as reliable as a Glock, even if you get something as reliable as a Springfield XD Military Elite Edition, you still have to make sure that you clean those guns. You may not have to do it as often, but especially if you're getting like a more budget-friendly gun or a gun that's probably under $200 or under $300, like those guns have to be cleaned and properly maintained a lot more than any of the other guns that we talked about, the higher tier guns. Also, the fifth thing that you guys need to make sure you do is just continue your education. And what I mean by that is just, make sure your gun laws aren't changing. That they are changing, be acquainted with how they're changing so that you can understand how you need to carry yourself moving forward. Also, you guys need to make sure that, you are just continually training, continually going to the range, continually learning, certain things like how to clear doors, how to clear certain areas, and how to just maneuver while you guys have a weapon. Especially if you guys look like me. It's very important to, sit down and join your local gun clubs, because a lot of times they'll talk to officers and they'll ask them, hey, listen, when you're at a traffic stop, how would you like someone with a weapon to be? How would you like, them to let you know, or whatever the case may be. So for example, again, I live in Columbia, South Carolina to be exact. And I've been pulled over in the last year, maybe about 6 to 8 times in the last 2 years. Probably about 6 to 8 times. And so, when they stop you, they kind of have like a little file on everybody when they stop them. And so pretty much everybody knows that, I'm carrying or whatever. And how I know this because when they stop, a lot of times if they don't look like me, they'll be like, hey, listen, the first question, they'll be like, hey, where's your weapon? And I'll be like, it's either on me or it's in the glove compartment or it's in the console right next to me. And, they'll be like, all right, cool. Some of them would be like, hey, take your weapon out and put it on the dashboard. And I quickly tell you, bro, I'm not doing that. My hands are going to stay on this wheel every time you at this car. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not pulling out a weapon in front of you. Like, that's just, no. Some of them be like, hey, listen, just make sure when I come to the car, your hands are attended to it, your hands on the top of the steering wheel are hanging out the window, so I don't have to worry about what you're doing, where I can't see you, I also know that I don't keep my insurance and stuff in my glove box at all, just because there might be a time when I go into a store or something and I lock it, in there or something or whatever. So I try to make sure that I keep it on the visor. I try to make sure I don't keep any important paperwork where my guns could potentially be stored, because again, I don't want them problems. And there are some good cops out there. There are a lot of great cops out there. I'll say that. There are a lot of great cops out there. And, for the most part, everybody's, pretty cool. It's like, hey, listen, it's written down in the file that you got a weapon. As long as it's not in your lap, it's not a problem. I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is where it's at. And, like, we don't have no problems. One time I was in an accident, and I stepped out the car, and I had the pistol on me or whatever. But it was, we have open carry here. But it was under my shirt. But because, it just got rattled a little bit, my shirt was on top of it. And so when I got out the car, I'm talking to the officer, explaining what happened. And while I'm talking to him, like, my hands are like this, because like I was just scratching or something or whatever. He's like, hey, put your weapon up. And I was like, bro, you're here for like a traffic stop. Somebody hit me. Like, bro, I don't have no reason to shoot you. And I was like, hey, listen, you go ahead and deal with him. I'm going to go put the weapon in the car, because I'm not pulling it out. I'm not pulling it to do anything with you right here and you being this aggressive. So go ahead and talk to them first and let me get a second to put my weapon in. And, the guy was a good sport about it. Afterwards, and he came back and he apologized and this, that, and the third. And, again, I say all that to say, just continue your education, reach out to, your local gun clubs, reach out to your law enforcement agencies and ask them, hey, listen, how do you want us to handle certain things? And a lot of that stuff can be the difference between life and death. Knowing your gun laws and stuff can be the difference between you serving 15 and you just going on and having a blessed day. Understanding and the continued education, the understanding the firearm safety stuff is, teaching you about stopping accidental discharges and different things like that. And the more you practice this stuff, the more it becomes a habit, the safer you are as a gun owner. So I hope this video was good. This is a long video. It's like 18 minutes. I apologize. I can ramble a little bit. But again, I hope you guys learned really good information. Again, this is Black Barrel Tactical. I hope you guys enjoy everything that we're doing here. We're trying to make sure that everybody is safe and everybody has fun with their two-way time. So if you guys haven't already done so, please make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of the content that we have when we kick it out. Guys, take it easy. Have a blessed day.